The most underrated and left out part of the hype machine that is Death Battle is the humble Next Time trailer. Despite there being an entire community of people who make banger trailers for matchups they love, it feels like people don't always give these parts of the series as much respect as they deserve. And that's understandable. They're pretty much irrelevant within 2 weeks, and it probably isn't the most fun thing in the world to dial back to a previous episode and skip 19 minutes in to watch the 20-second trailer. But with that being said, I'd argue the most exciting moments in the series to me have been those trailers. If I could put to words how exciting the Optimus vs Gundam and Godzilla reveals were, I would. If you know me, you're probably aware of how my top 2 favourite characters of all time looks, so this should be no surprise. When I finished Carnage vs Lucy and suddenly 2 shots from what might be my favourite movie of all time played, with that iconic shot of Optimus leaping over the Decepticons and firing down at them in the darkest hour we as Transformers fans had ever seen at that point, it was crazy. I wasn't really part of the community at that point. In fact, I don't think I'd ever really become a mainstay and moderately well-known name until around Season 8, despite having been lurking around since, let me check, Boba vs Samus. But my hype was through the roof, and regardless of how I feel about the episode itself, how it portrayed Optimus, how the characters are written, nothing will ever change how much excitement I felt at this reveal. And being able to talk to people that I knew who watched Death Battle about my excitement. Yes, I knew people in real life who knew about Death Battle at one point. Oh god. And how happy I was to see my favorite character of all time on this show that I love. And yet, that will never top what might be the most exciting and amazing moment in the show to me. Fogel vs Sector is one of the most existing episodes of all time to me, and yet it includes one of my happiest memories. When that Next Time trailer hit, the big stomp started playing on the black screen, nothing more than the light slowly fading in to scan upon the scales of some beast, before Godzilla's iconic roar blasted at me, it was something else. I felt like I'd become a kid again, like I was ready to jump up and down in excitement. It was him, it was Godzilla, one of my favorite anythings ever. The big kick-ass lizard, that's my guy. It's crazy to think that people believe versus debaters only care about characters for their stats and the scaling. If that was the case, no way would I have been excited for Godzilla. His stats and scaling are annoying as all hell. But because I love that character so much, I was so excited. I saw so many people talking about this, arguing who he'd fight, and that was an incredibly anxiety-inducing moment, because I was sitting there praying to whatever gods may be for him to fight Gamera. I also know what else it could have been: Ultraman, Optimus Prime, Superman. Not to say that I would have been entirely upset by any of these at the time, just disappointed. Godzilla vs Gamera is my all-time favorite matchup, followed by Galactus, Unicron, Destroyer, Iris, and whatever so on. It was the argument that I was arguing on the playground, more than any other. I was that guy in my youth, arguing before battleboarding was even a thing at other kids who didn't know what a Gamera was. All they knew was that it was the big fuck-off turtle they spotted on SBS one night and seen like 30 minutes of a random movie before going to bed and thought it was kinda cool. Though as the son of an Asian, I had access to many different parts that let me watch pretty much every Godzilla film. And a lot of Gameras too when I was a wee lad. And my love of these two, this matchup and this rivalry only grew stronger as I got older. And then when it finally dropped, the episode happened, I can't tell you how excited I was. It defies words, honestly. So this here is the point where I talk about the episode, isn't it? My favorite episode of Death Battle. Godzilla vs Gamera is an episode where the context of its release is incredibly important. This is a Season 2 episode, the Wild West of Death Battle. Not necessarily of the whole versus scene. I'd say that would come later with the advent of more and more versus shows inspired by Death Battle popping up, some of which are so different you could even say that they're not Death Battle. At this point, Death Battle episodes were unbelievably scattershot and all over the place. It was a season with episodes that had fights shorter than the attention span of a Twitter user on TikTok, and fights that double the length of anything the series has put out in the last 3 years. You had episodes that oozed passion, love, and an attempt to be more than the series ever was prior to Goku vs Superman, and you also had Captain America vs Batman. It was also the season that I felt Ben and Chad had the most freedom. I can't say for sure if this is the case, I'm not behind any curtains. Hey, can you open that fucker up, please? But Godzilla vs Gamera's analysis has that homey, shoddy quality I love the most. This is the vibe I love more than anything from any versus show you can put in front of me. This feeling of two absolute cave dwellers with better things they could be doing, just taking time out of their day to talk about these radical characters they just spent weeks guzzling content for, and wanting to express love for both of them at the same time in the only way their grey matter avoidant skulls can conceive: by spending thousands of dollars on making them kick the ever-living crap out of each other. Godzilla's analysis is full of all these inaccuracies that I can't get mad at. Not only do I not expect Death Battle of this era to get everything correct, but these are just the mistakes that a normal person would make if they binged a bunch of crap and did a video on it. Oh no, they got the delicate legal situation of Zilla and 98 Godzilla's names wrong. Oh no, they thought Godzilla died in these scenes that he did not die in. Oh, how will I ever survive this? But the charm of this episode oozes from every pore like the moistest pedestrian you've ever seen cross a road on a trail of their own sweat. And the amount of music taken directly from Godzilla and Gamera used throughout this episode is something that you understand why it can't be done these days, but it's so good. These recognizable tracks, each one playing perfectly into each scene when they talk about something, gives me so many happiness points. My serotonin excretion device has been activated within the carbon lump I refer to as my brain module. I also just genuinely find this episode pretty funny. It's built on these two being fucking dorks and Wiz saying things as unnecessarily bluntly as he can. You'd rarely see a joke like,
"But Godzilla does not simply walk past his enemies to destroy them,"
being done these days, but it's so fucking funny. He sounds like he genuinely believes that people would assume based on their words that that's what he does. That's what Godzilla does, and he wants to stop Boomstick from jumping ahead under that assumption for the rest of the analysis. Or even the main calculation of this episode being devoted solely to a completely nonsense feat that it was not the best they had for Godzilla. I mean, even back in those days, they must have had, Godzilla getting hit with that meteor that caused worldwide cataclysms and just being fine. Or the time a black hole attempted to mug him on the street like the quantum mechanics equivalent of Great Britain, and subsequently got killed and tossed into a river like the standard mechanics equivalent of Great Britain. But no, this is the episode where Boomstick asks Wiz a stupid question. He just stops everything to calculate real quick. This analysis really does feel like it strikes that perfect balance of laughing at the stupid shit, celebrating the ridiculous shit, and going on and on about all the random abilities of Godzilla. Gamera's analysis, I think, also has a lot of these sentiments. It's just a great analysis. It's fun, it's entertaining. I love how both of these start with real-world events that tie into the creation of this series. And I think I've wasted enough of your time on the analysis. You just want to hear about the fight, right? You want me to talk about the fight, right? I just want to let you know, I love these analyses. Not because they're the most technically best, they don't go into the stories the best, they definitely don't do all that, and the scaling is definitely far from the best. But I just love the energy. It makes me feel so happy. A lot of people have that sort of, look, it's Death Battle, it's Wiz and Boomstick talking about the thing that I know moment. This was that moment for me, this was that moment for me. Okay, but the fight though, it's fantastic, and not because of any crazy, oh well, this is just such a well thought out story, or this has some of the prettiest visuals, because it's really just, Godzilla is an asshole, so Gamera shows up and fights him, and no one ever compliments the visuals on this one. But this fight captures what I wanted from this matchup the most. For the whole 6-minute runtime, it captures the charm of a Toho action scene better than honestly even the stuff the MonsterVerse has been putting out these days. Sod the shoddy models and visuals, sod the weird jankiness of the animations, sod the strange effects work. This episode is all I wanted. The story? It's Godzilla is a prick and Gamera tries to stop him. Perfect. The start? It's Gamera trying to use his environment, blind Godzilla with fire and get around his power advantage, while Godzilla is just trying to bull rush him with brute force. It's perfect. And the fight, it's full of all these wonderful little callbacks. Godzilla blasts the city like the end of Godzilla 2000, which lets Gamera eat up the fire that's created from the explosions like the end of Gaia of the Universe. It's a really clever way to use the fire eating while getting around the fact that he can't eat Godzilla's atomic breath. Godzilla and Gamera both get to freak each other out with their equal confusion towards the other's ridiculous sliding dropkick and the spinning time flying shit. Gamera tries the dive bomb from Gaia of the Universe, which ends up working against him as he powers Godzilla straight through the thunderclouds and ends up supercharging him with natural lightnings. Which is it's a mirror to the earlier Godzilla blasting the city and helping Gamera absorb fire with his attempt to kill him. Gamera tries the same thing. He wouldn't normally have electricity, but in doing this, he lets Godzilla absorb the lightning. It's so cool. It leads to the final clash on the open waters. The music slows down, becomes more low-key. It starts to feel like it's a bare-knuckle brawl between the two. The insane plasma cannon happens that leads into one of the rawest shots of the show, with a pissed-off Godzilla rising back up behind his enemy, pissing blood on all sides and roaring in anger. And then Gamera, just no bullshit, immediately attempts to go for the fireball ejection, risking everything without a shred of hesitation to try and take Godzilla out with him. And Godzilla just throwing him up and spiraling into the red ray. It's one of the coolest kills in the series. Just for how well it presents itself, how hyped the moment is, honestly how surprisingly characterful it is, given most people assume these combatants are just dumb monsters. But you got Gamera, knowing he's gonna lose, immediately willing to risk his life to take out the enemy, doing something heroic sacrifice, and Godzilla immediately picking up on that and deciding to not only throw him away and blast him to death, but also to get him away from him so he doesn't get taken out by the explosion. And it combines two references to the source material. What more could you want? This fight isn't one that I can just describe as great for its technical writing or its choreographical abilities, but more how well it gives me everything I wanted. It's 6 minutes of pure kaiju action that throws in tons of references, creative ability usage, and gives me so much joy to this day. I even remember when this episode came out and how insane it was, and like the fucking SGC moment where Ben and Chad had to just do the analysis on the fly using a slideshow because of a hardware fuck up. Fireball ejaculation suicide moment, am I right? And you know, I'd love to say this is a great example of how good Death Battle used to be and how it's not the same today, but that's kind of not the case. Death Battle is so many things. It's a show about making fictional characters fight, yeah, but haha, the winner is who the writer wants to win. Well, they wanted Green Lantern to win because that's what their research told them, so happy shut the fuck up there. But it's also a show that's grown so far beyond what it was. An episode like Godzilla vs. Gamera would never happen today, but that's not a bad thing. It's in and of itself a representative of how far the show has come. Things change and improve. Death Battle has found different ways to be fantastic and touch so many people, more ways it ever could have if it just stayed like this. There are so many people I know who like episodes that I don't just because of personal attachment, like that stupid little tsundere who likes Ryuko vs. Shadow for some reason. I'm sure I could point to any number of people and say, what's your favourite episode? And they'll give me an episode that I wouldn't have even thought about. Yes, you'll have the recurring fan favourites. Iron Man vs. Lex Luthor, Bill Cipher vs. Discord, Dante vs. Bayonetta, Saitama vs. Popeye, Megazord vs. Voltron, All Might vs. Might Guy. No, it's not a coincidence that every single one of these I've mentioned has been from a different season of the show. Death Battle's qualities, how it writes, how it animates, how its research is handled, that changes with time. But what's never changed with time is the magic of Death Battle. The ability it has to be a beacon to fandoms and communities to get together and talk on what they love through a lens that makes pretty much any franchise accessible. Talking about One Piece in a community that's all about horror movies, that's not going to be easy, and I can't imagine running in with Scarface to a conversation about tokusatsu franchises is going to go well for you. But there's not as many of those barriers in this community. A single hypothetical Death Battle season can jump from a battle between gritty live-action films to silly magical girl bullshit to a cosmic Ubermensch fight between Bart Simpson's toe from that time he became Jehovah's Christ and a sentient toaster that Darkseid once used to make breakfast for his godhead self. This magic will always be there. Godzilla vs. Gamera is my matchup. It's the one that I love, and there are matchups lots of people love similarly, not because, oh, this is the objective best one I can write a thesis on about how the combatants' powers can bounce off one another, but because they love the characters. Or maybe it's just the matchup they grew up discussing, the rivalry they were invested in, the comparison and legacy that they've always vibed with, or all of the above in my case. It's not up to us as outside pies to determine right and wrong on their favourite matchups or episode, but you see, Godzilla vs. Gamera is just my favourite episode, and obviously, I'm fully aware it's a heavily flawed one. But sometimes there's just more about something to love than just how objectively good it is. Everyone has a favourite episode, and usually it's a personal thing as opposed to what someone can perform calculus on and determine to be the best. For example, let's just ask Whoand what his favourite episode is. Oi! Whoand!
Yeah?
What's your favourite episode of Death Battle?
When it comes to Death Battle, there are a few standout episodes that I simply love. Jack vs. Apro, or Scooby vs. Carriage, but their stellar animations, Bill vs. Discord for its everything, or my most wanted being Vader vs. Obito, spawning as a result of Kakashi vs. Obi-Wan. But if you know me, you probably know that I love this little pink puffball called Kirby. Kirby's Return to Dreamland being one of my favourite games of all time, which introduced me to a series of fun platformers with a lot of variety thanks to Kirby's copy abilities. So, see, when you have this show called Death Battle, which was about to do a Kirby-based episode, right around the same time that I really found my love for the series, I knew it'd be an instant hit. And thankfully, I've also seen one episode of Super Saiyan 3 Goku beating the shit out of Boo on Cartoon Network, so I kinda already knew who Boo was. Australian TV schedules are whack. And thus, we have Kirby vs. Majin Buu. I am well aware that since this was a Season 2 episode, there are a lot of issues with it, compositing Kirby's game feats with the anime, neglecting to even at least mention Super Buu in any form, and I mean, Dragon Ball's never had to deal with the speed of light before. Ain't that right, Nemi?
Yup.
But under all that lies a certain charm behind both analyses that I love. The fact that they gas up Kirby as this eldritch abomination, which isn't too far off actually, it's really funny. And it was also neat learning about Boo proper, and how he became a menace to Dragon Ball society. Props to the bitty babbity Boo joke, or pointing out how absurd that frying pan feat was as well. But the analysis isn't what won me over, oh no. The fight. The absolute spectacle that is the fight. This takes every aspect of what you would want from an awesome 2D episode, and proceeds to go off the rocker with it, implementing great use of the Kirby enemies for the intro and his copy abilities used throughout the fight. It just flows, they're moving place to place, it just works. From Kirby starting off the hammer and Boo not taking him seriously, to it suddenly becoming a sword fight, and let's not mention how hype it becomes when Kirby whips out Fighter and Kid Buu comes out to play. That one sequence when they're clashing will always live rent free in my head. And of course, the ending, which is amazing, using Buu's own attack against them, and somehow fitting in, like, good use for the Star Rod. And this is the ultimate reason for why I love Death Battle the most. The fight animations and just the overall choreography. I'm a simple man who loves to see nothing more than the unique kits of two characters interacting with one another, which is why I tend to draw myself in favouring the episodes that make great use out of a character's abilities. The wacky and the unlimited potential that can be unleashed when two creative characters collide is something why I cherish Kirby Buu to this day. While I understand it still has flaws in the research and that some parts of the episode don't hold up pretty well today, I won't let that get in the way for my enjoyment of what I still consider to be one of my favourite episodes, being Kirby vs Majin Buu. Anyway, so my actual favourite episode is Bill vs Discord.
Shut up!
Wow, man, that sure was a moment.
Thank you.
Did somebody say Wait, that's not me, wrong channel. Howdy boys, I've materialized into real-life Australia. And to the viewers at home, howdy again. I'm Ecto, or Don, as viewers of this channel may know me, and I'm a ghost with too much free time and too many interests. Perhaps one of the most important among them is Death Battle, a series which has irreparably altered my brain chemistry to a state where every character I come to love that can throw hands must be pitted against another in a crossover deathmatch in my mind, or I will cease all cognitive function. It's historically been very hard to pin down my absolute favorite memory with this show, but I think near the top of that list is the effect of Ben 10 vs. Green Lantern post-release. Not only did it really spark the Ben 10 fandom, which I've been a part of since before I could read, back into full throttle in online spaces, but it also hardwired 6 legendary words into the skulls of hundreds of thousands of internet viewers for the rest of time. But beyond that, I really have Death Battle to thank for so much more. Through this fandom, I've met people of all talents from all corners of the world, from trailer makers like Soul Symbiote to fellow Celtic Neanderthal Biffweed, to the folks over at Galaxy Video and the folks on this very channel, and I've even had the privilege of meeting the creators of the show in person and befriending numerous members of the research team. These are some of the closest friends and among the most important people in the world to me, and we'd likely never have met if a silly little internet show about fictional characters fighting to the death didn't start all those years ago. I owe enough to this show that it's about time I paid him back. It'd be a shame to let it all end here, so let's come together and put some kick into this Kickstarter.
So that's what they had to say. And you see what I mean? People are fans of episodes of so many different eras, styles, and matchups just because that's the thing they like. And that's how I feel about Godzilla vs. Gamera. Is it the best episode? No, not particularly. Is it the one I like the most? Yeah. People remember episodes of Death Battle for all sorts of reasons. Be it because it sparked a lifelong passion that you wanted to and currently are trying to pursue, or reviving a fandom you once thought dead and drumming conversation back up. Or in my case, kinda both with Godzilla vs. Gamera. But that episode also let me see a crossover that I never thought I'd get to. Yes, it's not official, but it doesn't change that Death Battle gave me the chance to see something with these two together, long after the Lost stage plays and long before the current video game tie-in. And it still represents the crossover better than anything official ever has, as far as I'm aware. It's also the only episode of Death Battle I ever watched with my father. This isn't really his scene, but as a fan of Godzilla and Gamera and someone who wanted to and still does want to see a crossover between them, this gave him a chance to see that crossover he wanted, and might never get to see in his lifetime be brought into being in some way. And sharing that with him was something that I cherished and will cherish for a long time. And it goes without saying, just like with Don, this series brought so many amazing people into my life. Several people I knew in person I got closer to and have remained incredibly close friends with to this day because we talked about Death Battle, and many more people I've met online through versus shows inspired by Death Battle or just Death Battle itself, and they have become inseparable from my day-to-day life. I can't imagine going a week or even a couple days without talking to Biff or Don, and there are so many other people I couldn't even begin to list off that I've met and spent a lot of time with because of this. I even met one of Death Battle's animators one time this year, and I converse with your boy Brandon Yates every now and again too. This channel, the 35,000 roughly people who have subscribed, are almost entirely here because of Versus stuff, because of the show I make inspired by Death Battle, or because of the videos I make on Death Battle. I can't imagine my life without Death Battle. You watching this video, supporting me, wouldn't be here without Death Battle. Godzilla vs. Gamera in many ways helped inspire me to do the stuff I do today. I'm an animator, I have my own versus show, and that's because of Death Battle. Because of the allure of being able to think of any random combination of characters and bring that crossover to life in my own way. And that would never have come to be if Death Battle hadn't inspired me to put my voice acting talents into something that could be shared. And there are countless like me who have a similar tale of being inspired by this show to make things and express their creative muscles through music, through art, through small edits, through full shows like me. Some of which would even go on to work on Death Battle itself. But I'm one of the lucky ones. You see, I don't often push really hard for my most wanted episode, Destroyer vs. Iris, not because I don't see any future where it happens, but because I already got my most wanted matchup as an episode a decade ago. I already got to see it come to life and to enjoy and revel in all this episode gave me. Not everyone's like that. There are so many people out there who have matchups they love that just never got to happen. And I don't mean that one guy sitting on the shitter who's watching this screaming, "Go off, tell about how good my most wanted matchup composite Lego Man legs versus the Stanley Parable bucket is." Not to say your most wanted matchup being something super niche is necessarily a bad thing. But I mean, there are people whose most wanted is just as popular as Godzilla vs. Gamera once was in the community. Matchups that once felt like they were destined to happen. You might be one of those people. Maybe the matchup you want most is Yuji vs. Denji, Luffy vs. Naruto, Simone the Digger vs. Kyle Rayner, Captain America vs. Kamen Rider Ichigo, Ash vs. Yugi, Gru vs. Megamind. God forbid, maybe your most wanted is Tomcat vs. Wile E. Coyote. So as a wise man once shrieked like a banshee, the show must go on. Death Battle needs you! Yes, that's right, it needs you! Julian! Right now, Death Battle is in a place of what some might call crisis, and others would call turbulence, and I would call in need of my money right now. Death Battle have got a Kickstarter up. You probably know this, and if you don't, shut up, you're lying. I literally just told you. And I encourage anyone and everyone to come together and help support this show we love. There's too much on the table that is yet to be cooked. Too many creative minds, technical talents, excited, passionate people currently left without a job. Let's make this launch one to remember. You know, like that one time we as humans flew into the sky and then the rocket just landed back safely and we spent an unnecessary amount of money to film a made-up video of us on the moon using the advanced CGI of 1969. Even as little as a single $1 can go a long way if there's 10,000 people doing it. This doesn't have to be a future built on $1,000 donations, it can be a future built on $10 donations if enough of us band together. And even if you can't support the show financially, you know what, that's fine too. Just getting the word out there, helping to spread this revival and share the series and news of its return, it means more than a lot of people might be aware. This Kickstarter will be linked in the description and is up literally right now. It's just there. You know, it's up. You can donate, you can follow, you can tell that one guy your mother sees in the store when she buys milk for you every week to go check it out. Me? I'm going to start doing more Death Battle content whenever I can. Now, you know, I want to help share the news, get it out there, spread the word, get conversation drumming as much as my 5,000 views a video can get me. Jesus Christ, I've fallen off. And if you can get the show off the ground, if you can get us another whole season, I'll review Frieza vs. Megatron and Sunamhong vs. Heracles. And this video gets 50,000 views too or something, yeah, I don't know. Special thank you to Whoand and Donovan for joining me to talk about their favorite episodes and their favorite moments and like... Now, I was happy to talk about Godzilla vs. Gamera, you know? And I still have more to say on the episode, but like for this one I wanted to focus on just the things that made me smile. Like this episode brings me so much joy, I love rewatching it, and everyone's got episodes they love rewatching, and everyone should get the chance to have the matchup that they love most get on Death Battle. And sometimes it's just more likely than others. Like, I'm still kind of surprised Godzilla Gamera happened at all, given the fact that Gamera, prior to Rebirth, hadn't done anything in fucking ages.